favorite things that happens on my videos is that men will come in and they will say something with their full fucking chest that's wrong. Like, you could have just, phrased this as a question, because this is obviously not an area in which you have expertise. So a few thousand years ago, there was a society in what is now modern day Ukraine. And this society was egalitarian, as in they found evidence that everyone had similarly sized places to live. They had similar access to resources. They all made art. Sounded lovely. They're pretty sure it was a matriarchy, since most of the art was celebrating women in the female form. Meanwhile, just a few hundred miles away, and also what is modern day Ukraine, there was a patriarchal society with so much violence that they literally found a room full of skulls that had been separated from their bodies before they died. Violent, oppressive patriarchy. These two civilizations traded with each other. They knew of each other's existence. They were perfectly aware that there was another group of people living in an opposite manner from them, and they doubled down through a process which anthropologists call cismogenesis. I hope I'm saying that right, cismogenesis, where you look at your neighbors and you pick out the thing that separates you, that makes you distinctive from them, and then you double down on that thing. So you're like, ooh, that patriarchal place looks real violent. Let's be extra egalitarian and fair. There's also a place in central Mexico that was an egalitarian society for 500 years, which I think is one of the longest known egalitarian societies. It was called Teotihuacan. Interestingly, their art had pictures of people eating mushrooms and then rainbows coming out of their head. It is theorized that Teotihuacan also started out as a matriarchy. That's how they got to be egalitarian in the first place. In an egalitarian matriarchy, where the women are deciding how the children are raised, and they're deciding, oh, we're going to raise them with an egalitarian mindset, it's not even necessary to remain a matriarchy, because you can let the men lead as long as those men weren't conditioned to power hoard and to hoard resources like the men in our patriarchy are. Comments like these reveal that most men can't even conceive of a society in which the leaders do not hoard power and resources for their own benefit. To you, it goes without saying that whoever is in power is going to take the resources, is going to take the power, and is going to use it for the benefit of their group to the exclusion of other groups. But that is not what happens when you put women in charge. You know why? Children. You see, women have both male and female children. So they don't design a society that only benefits the female children and that oppresses the male children. They care about them both. Women also historically lead via collaboration and via consensus, whereas men usually lead by authority and directive. Picture a large room full of people that are trying to make a decision about something with a society. Maybe they're trying to decide how to store food for the winter. In a patriarchy, the men that hold power, they may give the performance of taking feedback, but they're ultimately going to make the decision themselves, and that decision is almost always going to line up with their own self-interest. In an egalitarian matriarchy, you're going to have women up there leading the discussion, making sure that everybody gets a chance to speak, and then having everybody vote on what they want. These women leaders facilitating this collaborative process of reaching a consensus are not making the decision and enforcing it as to everybody else, nor are they making a decision solely in their own self-interest. They're facilitating a decision in the group's best interest. Anyway, a lot of people think this, especially men, so I highly recommend picking up some anthropology and going through all the myriad ways we have organized our civilizations in the past, and which ways worked and which ways didn't, and why.